So the plan today is to look at the new features that are in Sage 2 2016, but there's a few features in previous versions as well, which we're going to cover. I'm conscious quite a few of you guys are on different versions of Sage, ranging back to sort of 2009 sort of upwards. So forgive me for those people who are already on a version that includes some of the features we have today, and hopefully enough of it will be new to you for it to be a worthwhile session. As I say, a lot of the key features are in the latest version, 2016, but there will be a little overlap on some earlier versions as well. We have got quite a bit to cover today, quite a few areas, so I'll just go through those and sort of cover them at a fair detail. But as I say, any questions that come up, we could save those for the end. That'll be fantastic. So unless there's any initial questions, what I'll do, I'll pop you all on mute and get straight into the demonstration. Is that okay? Jolly good. Pop you guys on mute now. Okay guys, so hopefully you can all see on screen the Sage 200, the 2016 version of the software, just been out about a month or two now. You may notice for those people on older versions, the look and feel has changed. That actually changed at the last version, 2015. So we've got this new user interface, which is a much more modern user interface. On the left-hand side, we've still got a similar structure, so we can see all the modules down the left-hand side which we have access to, and I've got everything switched on at the moment. And I can navigate by going into, for instance, the sales ledger, and then into a particular module, say the sales accounts, and then go into the form itself. So go into amend account details, it pops it up there. So it's similar to what we've had before, just a more sort of modern user interface coming through. We also still have all our list views. So if I go to my list view there, they're accessible as they were before. And also things like the process maps, whereas before they're accessible from the top right, they're now here in the menu structure on the left. So I can go in there and go to my process map as well. So yeah, so with this menu structure, obviously there's lots of forms and functions in there, but what we have now is this new search function. So if you are looking for a specific area of functionality, not sure where to go to, what you can do is just click in here, type in, for instance, fixed, and it will then search and find any menu functions that match that. And you'll notice it also lurks in the name of the menu, so fixed assets here, but also amend operation, copy on operation. There's no mention of fixed assets in the title, but actually somewhere in the form itself it says fixed. So it's quite a useful deep search function to actually find specific areas within the program. Alongside the core menu, which if you're given permissions you can amend yourself and tweak what you see, so you can really design your own menu if you're required, you have the ability to set up favorites as well. So if I click on my favorites menu here, you can just drop in those functions you use day in, day out, and just have a quick, easy access to those functions without having to navigate through the full menu that's on the system. As before, you have full access rights, so I'm logged in as the administrator down there, so I do have access to everything, but for each individual user you can control what they can see and do and access within the software. If I just click on the home icon here, this takes me to my welcome page. There's another quite useful thing within here. If I go to frequently accessed, what the system will do, as you use it day in, day out, it will start to group those functions you use on a particular day. So it's showing me now frequently accessed on a Tuesday. So it's just listing those functions that more often than not I use on Tuesdays. So again, just a nice, easy way of navigating through the system and making it as quick and easy to get to the bit of functionality you're looking for. So that's a bit on the user interface. As I say, that was from the previous version, so it's not a new thing to say from the 2016, but for those people on earlier versions, it is a different kind of look and feel we have there on the system. I'm now going to look at some of the more kind of financial new features on the program. And a lot of those are to do with Sage Pay and payments integration. And one of the first things we have straight away is something I can't really demonstrate to you, but we now have the function to add a Sage Pay button to your invoice or statements or any number of transactions or documents raised by the system. So as I'm raising, for instance, a sales order, if I was to print an invoice, I'll just display all the invoices we have, so I'll print one to screen here. What we can do now, and unfortunately I don't have it to show you today because we don't have it set up to a Sage Pay account, is you can actually embed a Sage Pay Me Now button on your invoice template. And so when you email this document out, down in the footer section here, we'll have a sort of Pay Me Now button, which the customer can click on when they receive the email come through. And by clicking on that button, they'll then be able to enter their credit card details and pay that invoice there and then, or at a later date if they wanted to. that transaction will then go into your Sage Pay account, and you then have the ability to import those transactions back into Sage as receipts. So if I go into my sales ledger, and then in the utilities section, we can import the Sage Pay transactions. So because all those transactions will be listed in the Sage Pay account, that function allows you to drag them all into Sage, saving on time sort of rekeying that information and obviously speeding up that payment process as the customers are able to pay instantly as the invoices come through, you would hope. The other side to sort of the pay control is actually paying suppliers as well. So what we have is a new integration to Sage Payments. We've always had the e-banking integration within Sage, so it allows you to link it in with banking software such as Barclays Online Banking and produce a BACS file. What we now also have is Sage Payments integration available. If I just look on the website here, again, not the easiest, there is actually a video on this website, so if you'd like further information, it might be worth having a look, doing a Google search for Sage Payments, and then there's a nice video that will show you the more detailed functionality that it offers. But fundamentally, what you can do when you set up a supplier, for instance, and it also works with the Sage Payroll software, but for this purpose, when you set up a supplier and fill in their bank details, they're automatically uploaded to the Sage Payments part of the system, which is a web-based element. And then as you put those supplier details up, you'll then have an approver set up in your Sage Payments account who can approve them to be paid electronically. And then as you generally process your invoices and payments on Sage, those payments will be automatically uploaded to your Sage Payments account, and then again, they can be authorized for release via a web-based approver within the Sage Payments area of the system. So it just gives you a lot more control over your payments, unlike the core standard functionality we've had to date. So online authorization of payments to be made, online authorization of people who can be paid, and so on. And it just gives you a lot more control over that process within the system. And as I say, just a core part of the Sage system nowadays, you just need to sign up for a Sage Payments account and that functionality becomes available. Another side to sort of the integration from a banking point of view is we now have what are called Yodlee feeds, and that's a way of linking your Sage payment system or Sage bank account to your real life bank account, be it Barclays, Business Master, or whatever that you're particularly using. So you have these bank feeds functionality. So this again is another screenshot that's showing you how this functionality will work. But essentially, you can see from this button here, you would download transactions from your bank account. So you can link each one of your Sage bank accounts to a corresponding real-world bank account. And then if you have this Yodlee functionality switched on, you can download those transactions straight from your bank account into the Sage system. So in this left-hand panel here, you will see the transactions that have come from your bank that you've downloaded. In the right-hand panel, you have your transactions that have been posted through Sage. And you notice up here, you can add extra transactions in for those ones that may have been missed. And then essentially, it's a reconciliation process as you're used to doing as before. So you just reconcile the bank transactions on the left to the Sage transactions on the right. And once reconciled, they drop to these bottom two areas here. So again, just really saving on time of sort of processing and manually entering receipts and so on. You can just pull that transactional data straight from your bank account into Sage and have that ability to then reconcile them off and add any transactions that have been missed. So again, a really useful time saver. And as always, you get the auto match function that'll match where the date, the amount, and the reference are all the same. So it can be a real time saver, especially where there's a high volume of transactions going through. For those people who aren't using the Yodlee, we also have a slightly improved bank reconciliation screen. So if I go into my cash book and period end routines and go into my bank reconciliation, it's now been split out into two sections. So as before, it was a bit difficult to see which ones have been reconciled, which ones hadn't. Now we can see the unmatched items in the top half and the matched items in the bottom half. So in here, I can either select the ones that I'm tick bashing against my statement in front of me and match those, and it'll drop those down to the bottom screen. Or I can also double click as I see them on the statement as well and pull those through. So again, just a slightly improved look and feel to the reconciliation part of the system. And we can also add transactions in here as well, as we've always been able to. So again, just little improvements, usability improvements within the system. So some real key extra functionality coming through from the integration for time saving, allowing you to actually quickly collect money from your customers via the Sage Pay integration, allowing you to quickly reconcile those payments by downloading them back from Sage Pay and also downloading general payments made into your bank account using the Yodlee feeds. And also payment of suppliers is much better control over it now with the Sage Payments integration, which also actually allows you to do foreign currency payments. One of the limitations of the previous e-banking functionality, which is still available, is it was only for sterling payments, whereas the Sage Payments functionality, I should have mentioned, is also available for foreign currency payments as well. So it gives you a lot more flexibility when dealing with customers and suppliers and how you interact and transact with them. Just going to move to the Nominal Ledger now and some changes we have in here. So going into the nominal side, what we now have is the ability, previously to date we've been able to set budget at account and at group account level. So if I go into a nominal account, so looking at the particular nominal code here, we've always been able to set a budget for the account, and you could set a profile budget or annual budget or monthly budget or so on. We've also been able to set budgets at group account level. So when you group a number of codes together, you've been able to group it at that level as well, or budget at that level as well. But we now have the ability to set a budget at a reporting category level, which is a great extra level of reporting that it gives you. So report categories are linked to the nominal codes. You define the report categories when you set up your chart of accounts. And if I come out of the screen here and amend a nominal report category budget, I've set one up here called sales. So you pick the report category, it then shows you all the underlying nominal codes that are linked to that report category, and you can then specify the current year and up to 5 years forward budgets on the system, and you can then choose which nominal codes you'd like to apply to this budget. So you can set up as many different of these versions of this budget as you wish to have, and it just gives you that extra level of reporting, because not always do you want a budget at nominal account level, you want maybe a more holistic, in this case sales budget, and report against that, and this is then available obviously to all the reporting within the system. Another thing to look at is we now have the cash flow report. So if I go into the reports and then our financial statements, down here we have our cash flow report we can run on the system. You set this up as a cash flow layout as you would do your profit and loss or your balance sheet layouts in the financial statements area of the system. But in here I can run my cash flow report. You have to forgive my demo data, it's not the greatest, but I'll choose some dates in 2014. Choose that there. So just running our cash flow report, and as with all reports in Sage, this can be tweaked and customized as you require, but it's just pulling through that cash flow information. So looking at a report account level, UK sales, export sales, other income coming through, then the costs, and giving you sort of a closing balance coming through. As I say, the demo data is not great, so apologies that it's a fairly meaningless report, but you get the idea of what's available with the cash flow report. So we have that cash flow report, and we also have the cash flow forecast. So I have a look in our nominal inquiry section. Oh. Click in the right area, sorry. Cash book inquiries, cash position workspace. This is starting to pull through sort of useful information about your bank accounts and sort of the people who owe you money and such like. So by bank account, highlighting that on the top here. So I've got my main bank account, and it's showing us who owes us the most money in this case, and who do we owe the most money to. So some useful workspaces, but also the cash flow projection, where you can specify, for those users who have used Sage 50 in the past, this will look fairly familiar functionality. It is very similar to that was in Sage 50. So you can specify the date range you'd like to actually run your cash flow for. Choose which bank accounts you're going to use. So I'm just including my main bank account at this stage. And it'll pull through all the recurring transactions that are set up. So I've got various bank payment direct debits, bank payment standing orders coming through. So all those recurring transactions are coming through that are applicable for the next 3 months. And I can choose which of those I'd like to include in the cash flow. But I can also put in manual transactions as well. So if I'd like to put in some manual transactions, I can pop those through. So if I could spell payments and so on, so maybe it's a payment of £1,000, for instance, and they'll just pull that data through. And as with everything on Sage, you can always send the data straight to Excel, so you get the send to Excel function here. And it drops that data straight out into an Excel format. So again, cash flow reporting has been something we waited for a number of years for in Sage 200, so we've now got that functionality coming through. Another area we've been looking for also is the fixed assets functionality. So what we can do is specify fixed assets within the Nominal Ledger. So if I go into my Nominal Ledger, I've got my fixed assets module in here. And within here, we can set up all our fixed assets. Click on my drop down, got a number of fixed assets set up. Come in here, so looking at a particular asset record here, specify the depreciation method. So straight line, reducing balance and so on, period or annual. Initial value of the item, when it was acquired, last depreciated. The depreciation rate, so you've got the depreciation percentage coming through, and then the net book value coming through as well, and the associated nominal codes, and various analysis codes you can specify as well against that. And then once you've got your assets set up, you can go through and run your depreciation as a monthly process. So come in and depreciate my asset, choose which depreciation period you're running it to, choose which of those you'd like to depreciate, and then you simply hit the depreciate button, it'll make the relevant postings for you. Where you have asset disposals, you then have a routine also to dispose of that asset as well. So if I click on the dispose asset function, again, similar process as before, click on the items, click on the dispose function, and it walks you through the steps, making the relevant nominal postings. The final big change on the Nominal Ledger is for those customers who've used Sage 50 in the past, there's a lot of people who are always very fond of the corrections module, and a lot of people feel a bit underwhelmed that it's not available in Sage 200. Now, we've always had the ability to reverse transactions within Sage, so I can go into a sales ledger transaction and that's reverse it off, and it will just post a corresponding credit if it was an invoice, for instance. But we've never really had anything around the nominal side. Well, now we do. So in the Nominal Ledger, what you can actually do is choose a relevant transaction. I'm just going to search for a journal in this case. I think my screen's just reconnecting. Hopefully you can. Just going to wait a couple of seconds because it just said my screen's dropped. So I'm hoping you can see the nominal list coming through. So look at this list of nominal transactions, if I could speak here. And what we can now do from this list view, and you can also do it from the workspace, if I right click, I've got a couple of actions available. One is to amend the transaction details, and the other is to correct the transaction. So if I amend the transaction details, I can go in and amend the narrative against that particular posting. And you can see it's pulled up the entire journal that was posted here. And if I right click and choose the same again, but do correct transactions, I can now go in and amend the posting. Obviously, it still needs to balance, but you can go in and amend nominal codes, change the values and so on, reverse the transaction off as well. So it gives you a lot more control over the transactions and makes it a lot more user-friendly when, unfortunately, mispostings happen. You can come in here and correct them with a much more straightforward process than you've been able to date. So hopefully that'll be music to a lot of people's ears because, I'd say for many years, people have missed the corrections functionality of Sage 50, but we've now got much more of that available in Sage 200. Just moving away from some of the financial areas on the system now. I'm going to go to some of the stock and the pricing side. A couple of small changes here. Firstly, going into the price book module. What we have against our price bands is the ability to set up a time-related price band. So if I go into maintain price bands, what you'll now see for those people who use this functionality is you have the ability to set a time-based price band and specify when it's active to and from. So in this case, we've got a summer offer price band set up, which we can then link customers to. But you can then define when that price band is active. And when it's no longer active, they'll revert back onto their previous price band. But it just, again, gives you control. It means you can automate some of those tasks. So pre-set up a new price list that you're going to be using, define when you want it to become into effect. It might be a perpetual end date, so you don't have to fill in the to date. but it gives you a bit of control to be able to do more advanced work up front on pricing, release it on the system, but be confident that it's not going to be coming into effect until you'd like it to come into effect. You also have the ability to, with just a limited price band, you don't have to have it time-based. With a limited price band, you can just restrict what products fall on that price band as well. So if a certain customer only has pricing on certain products, you can do that via a price band, but having a limited price band with only the certain selected products that are available to that customer. Excuse me. Alongside the price band side, on stock control, we have much more analysis we can build in now. So if I go into my stock list here, I'm just going to look at one of my stock records. So go into my Blender, amend the details here. And what we now have is an analysis tab on the stock record. For those of you who are sort of eagle-eyed, you'll realize that this is where we used to have the search categories functionality. All those are now split out to this separate tab along here. So we have our search categories are still available, but they're just in a separate tab. But we now have our analysis codes available within the stock file, and you can set up to 20 analysis codes on the system, which are available for all reporting purposes, be it BI, be it the Excel reporting, or just the core inbuilt Sage Report Designer. But again, it gives you a lot of control and flexibility over how you can report and analyze your sales and your stock lines and your purchases and so on. So you define what analysis codes are available, you define what's available in the drop-down list here, and that's all done from an admin area by going to stock maintenance. What we have down here is the maintain analysis codes. Now again, we've had this ability to set up 20 analysis codes in a lot of the key modules for a number of versions, but it's always been missing from the stock file. So it's good that that's now fallen into line with the other modules. As I say, you've been able to, for a number of versions, set 20 analysis codes on a sales order or a purchase order or so on. But you can now specify those on both the stock item records and the stock transactions as well. So it just opens up an awful lot of extra abilities around the reporting side and analysing your sales and the types of sales and however you want to slice and dice your data. Moving on to the order processing side, if I go into sales order processing, what we have in here is the ability to set up sales returns, which are, sorry, I'm just going to let somebody in. Go into my sales returns, I can actually now create a return from a sales order. So I can either do that from the sales order list and highlight a relevant sales order and click this function, new return from the order, or I can go into the sales return itself, enter a new sales return, and we have a blank return here, and I can just use this copy order function down here. So choose a relevant order, pulls through the details, click OK, and it just pulls through that corresponding all the sales order lines come across, now as a return, and I can go in and amend this as required. So I might want to delete that particular line off, and we're just returning the one line on that particular order there. So again, a nice function that allows you just time saving where returns are being linked to a sales order, which as you'd expect there would be. It allows you to quickly time save and push those returns through very quickly and easily. I'm not sure how many of you guys use the project accounting module, but I'll just quickly show you a couple of new functions in there. One of those that do use it is we've been crying out for years for the ability to raise an order with a stock line and link that to a project, or we can now do that. Up to now, it's always been only a free text line on a sales order that can be linked to a project, but now we can link a stock line on a sales order to a project. So if I choose my customer, choose Festival Homes there, I'm going to add an item to this sales order, choose a relevant product, so choose an espresso machine, maybe 3 espresso machines, and down here, we're up to date, we haven't been able to do this, but now we can actually link this to a project. So I can link it to project number 8, link it to the relevant revenue line on that project, and also the cost line as well, if we had that set up. So again, a nice new feature for those people who are using projects but do sell stock items to those projects. Just gives you that ability to process a transaction as you do in a real world, but link those costs to the project record. Another big feature we have within project accounting is work in progress. Again, something that people have been clamoring for a number of years. So going into the project accounting side, look at my projects list. We can now define the WIP on a project. So I can come in here and see my project structure as we could do before. See all the details around that particular project. But if I do a cost analysis against this particular project, just run that. And what you now see, although there's no data coming through, not the best demo data, we've got a WIP cost coming through. So you're seeing the actual costs, the committed costs and purchase orders, total costs, and then how much has gone to WIP. So again, that's making all the postings to the nominal ledger. So again, something that's been sort of been cried out for a number of years, it's been fixed on this version. So we've got that WIP functionality within Sage. Those are some of the key areas within the kind of functionality of the system. Another area to look at is the Excel reporting. Now, for those of you who are maybe aware, we've had business intelligence for quite a few years. So the BI module, business intelligence, is a nice tool. It allows you to report and it gives access to non-Sage users. So you don't need to have a Sage user license to run those BI reports. So I've got a couple of examples set up here. So if I run my profit and loss report, this is just an Excel file. So it's just pulling data straight from the Sage system into Excel. You build what's called a data warehouse in the SQL tables, and it allows a non-Sage user great access to reporting information from Sage. So this is a profit and loss report, and you can see here we've got embedded criteria within the report. So I can look at period 12 of the nominal ledger. If I double click that, it then throws up all the available data. So I might want to look at the first 4 months of the year, or maybe all of 2015. And if I click OK, it just redraws that P&L to give me a P&L for 2015. Where you have these downward pointing arrows, that was a report category, UK sales there, and I can double click that, and then it expands out and gives me all the underlying nominal codes that make up that balance. But at this stage, we can only go to period balances. So if I right click and drill to detail and click OK, it's only currently showing me the period balances against those. It's not going down to nominal transaction level. And I'll show you where we can now get to nominal transaction level. The other nice thing about BI is the usability. So it's something that it's not a technical reporting tool. So with the Sage BI toolbar, we can come in here, change my report layout. And for those of you who've used pivot tables in the past, this will be second nature. So this is the data we've got available. This is what I'm seeing in the report. These are my rows and these are my columns. If I want to see maybe budget, I want to see movements and variance, just hit apply. On the left-hand side, it redraws that report. So say without having to have a Sage user license, you can do some great analysis and some great reporting. And if maybe want to see P&L by accounting period or P&L by cost center, you just pick up, for instance, the, let's do accounting period. Just drag that to be a column up here. I'm just going to apply that. Because we've got that downward pointing arrow, just double click 2015. And it expands that out. So you get P&L, budget P&L by accounting period coming straight through. So as I say, BI is a fantastic reporting tool, really gives a lot of access, a lot of information. This is a financial report. We've also got things like sales dashboard reports, so this is pulling through sort of sales information. And this particular report is actually combining 4 separate reports in one main dashboard view. So there's a number of tabs along the bottom here with the different reporting information coming through, but they're all linked together. So if I choose maybe, instead of looking at all customers, maybe my top customer, Abbey Retail, click OK. All 4 reports are linked, so they all update. So all these behind have been pre-filtered to Abbey Retail, you see here. So the front dashboard is now giving me the information specific to Abbey Retail. If I go full screen, you can see it a bit more clearly. So just again, really nice reporting, great for sort of management meetings and so on, having that quick access to data and what-if scenarios and so on. As I say, one, if you will, weakness of BI has always been the fact it doesn't go to nominal transactions. It does go to sales transactions or purchase, but not nominal transactions. So what we now also have is the Excel reporting module. So we go to Excel reporting. You get a number of reports out of the box, and then you can add extra reporting packs on. You can also build your own reports as well. So there's a number of reports coming through here. And if I look at maybe, let's look at the nominal transactions. So view this particular report. Open that worksheet. And for those users of Excel who've come across it, it's very much more like Power BI functionality. We've got the slices coming through here. So again, allowing you to pivot and slice and dice the data. We've got all the transactions coming through from Sage, but these kind of filters will look fairly familiar to the things you've seen in Sage. So I might want to scroll to the top, maybe just look at transactions that come through from the sales ledger, for instance. And on the left-hand side, it just filtered down that list, or I can then clear that filter off. or those for a certain cost center. So maybe look at the administration cost center and it filters down, or those for a certain, just this year or last year or a certain period or so on. So whenever you do that, it's filtering down that data quickly and easily. And this is Excel, so you can do all your normal sort of reporting and VLOOKUPs and charts against this, but it's a quick connection to the database to pull the information straight into Excel. It's a bit like Microsoft Query for those people who've used that. But it just gives you that ready access to the data that's held within Sage. And as I say, because it's an Excel file, you can add whatever extra tabs, whatever extra functionality to this is you want to have, save as many different versions of reports or new reports you want to, but it just gives you a lot more flexibility in how you pull your data out. Because we find most people tend to report in Excel, so this is just a nice quick way of getting that data out. So working hand in hand with BI, BI is very much straight to the kind of finished report. This is very much giving you access to a lot of data, and there's a number of reports you get out of the box. So say, looking at sort of nominal transactions there, I'll close that report down. I won't save that. So we can look at sort of customer reports, customer transactions, customer turnover by period, for instance. Go in here, stock reports. Again, quick access to information coming through. So I want to look at a certain customer, good old Abbey Retail, and it's pulling that through. Analysis codes coming through here. So your stock analysis codes will come through to give you great access to lots of information within the system. We want to look at maybe one of our sales guys, look at Alan Ward, and see his turnover by account, for instance, quickly pulling that data through, looking for a certain period or a certain month or a certain year. So again, lots of improvements around the Excel reporting side with the new Excel reporting and it working hand in hand with the Sage BI functionality. A couple of last areas to look at. One is the self-service functionality and the other one is the CRM and the CRM integration. So what we now have is the ability of these web users, and they have what's called self-service functionality. So if I log in, you can have web-only users on the system. And what the web users have access to is workspaces within the program. So you can set up which workspaces you like them to see. You can control that by user. Oh, if I click the right thing. So what you do, you log in with your username and password. It's just a website, so you go to your username and password here. It means you can run it on an iPad or any type of browser and access it from home or so on. And you have access to all the information, all the kind of reporting information that has been released to your logon. So it's controlled by the normal access rights you set up within Sage. But these are all the workspaces we have in the system. So I might want to look at maybe, I'll scroll to the bottom here, let's look at a stock workspace. And let's look at a stock status inquiry, for example. So as a web-based user, if I'm out at a sales visit, for instance, customers ask me what stock we've got on hand or what's their order history or their account balance, you can very quickly gain access to this information. So I can come in here and apply a filter. Maybe I'm looking for a certain code, filter that, and it just filters that down there. So it's now showing only those products that have that code on there. Highlight a line here, and it's now showing me stock levels in the list below. And you can run actions as well. I can right-click, export this data. You can run actions if you have that functionality. So I could drill in to add a memo or view a different workspace or so on. So it's given those web users a lot of functionality. We also have a new web order entry function, so you can allow people to enter orders via our website as well. I don't unfortunately have that today, but again, it's just expanding that web presence of the Sage system and allowing people to use it in a much more remote way, not having to always be office-based to actually use the data and enter transactions into the system. Along with the workspaces of viewing reporting information, we also have some web time expenses, which ties through to the project accounting. So with this, I'm not going to go into this, but you can enter timesheets and authorize timesheets and enter expenses and authorize expenses if you're using the project accounting module. And we also have the purchase order authorization. So purchase order authorization has been around for quite a while. What the system can do is when a purchase order goes onto the system that needs authorization, it will look at who it needs to authorize that purchase order, send them an email, and that email will link through to this website here and allow that user to authorize the purchase order remotely. So again, they don't need to log into Sage 200 to do it. They can do it as a web-based user. So they would come in here, view all their unauthorized purchase orders. It would list all those purchase orders that are awaiting their authorization. And again, you highlight the purchase order here. You can see the line level detail at the bottom here. So if I highlight a different one, different information coming through. And from this screen, they'll be able to authorize it if the function came up. on a different one, but you can right-click, authorize that purchase order, or query it. So if there's any issues, you can right-click, put a query in, for instance, change the quantity, buy it from a different supplier, or no, we're not going to authorize this, and it will fire that information back. But it has that ability to authorize it as a web-based user. You don't have to be office-based or accessing Sage 200 to authorize a purchase order on the system. And what we're going to look at now is the Sage CRM. So I'm just going to minimize down Sage and look at Sage CRM. Now, we've had quite a lot of changes within the Sage CRM. Previously, it was known as Sage 200 CRM, and it was a slightly different version of the Sage CRM software. So you could always buy Sage CRM standalone, or you received Sage 200 CRM as part of your Sage 200 software. Now Sage have rationalized that, so they just have Sage 200 accounts, which is the product we've been looking at, and it now ships with Sage CRM. So they have one version of Sage CRM available. With it, they have a brand new integration, which really does tie the two systems together very tightly and very well. So this is a Sage CRM. This is the latest version of Sage CRM. What it's doing is log me into what's called my CRM. So this is my own personal area on the database. So I'm doing my sort of opportunity pipeline. I'm logged in as a salesperson. I can search for entities in the system, so I can search for companies, for individuals, for sales opportunities, for support cases. I'll search for a company, and I can do a search on any data in the system I wish. So this is just one guide of the program. You can define what you want to see, what fields, what drop-down lists, but you may notice we've got Sage 200 data coming through. So I want to search on a certain Sage 200 customer account number or those linked to a certain company. And in this results page here, I can see Abbey Retail's come through, and it's showing me that with the number 1 that it is linked to a Sage 200 company. So the one above, ABB Nicholas, are probably just a prospect at this stage. They haven't actually purchased from us, so we don't have an account record on the Sage 200 database yet, whereas Abbey Retail are a customer. They've purchased from us, so they have a record on the account side of the system. So the two systems are working in unison. They're talking together, and the integration is much tighter than it's ever been, and it's much quicker in the way it operates. So if I log into Abbey Retail, all the information is coming through. Again, this is all tailorable. You can customize what you view here. So this is just one version of a CRM system. You can define what fields you view, what drop-down lists, and so on. But what we have are some tabs along here. So we've got a finance tab, and we've got a commercials tab. And you can see on the right-hand side, we can also unlink this record from the finance system. So if for some reason you wanted to delink them from the accounts record, you could do that. All access controlled as well, so you can restrict who can do these kinds of functions. But if I click on my Finance tab, that's then going to throw up the available information from a financial standpoint, which we can look at about Abbey Retail. So there's a couple of things we can do. We can look at just basic account details, and nicely you can look at account memos. So you can pop memos against the sales ledger account and the transactions within Sage. More often than not, that's not then visible to the salespeople who may be CRM users. Well, now we can. So if maybe the credit control people are updating Sage with notes about unpaid invoices or so on, no data is coming through. But you could see that coming through here. But CRM users could also add memos themselves. They want to pop through, so issue with payment, for instance. And that data is then pushing that back through to the account side of the system. So if maybe you have certain users just on CRM, those are just on the accounts, those accounts users can see these memos and notes coming through from the sales side of the system. We'll go back to finance. We can also then view key data coming through from Sage, so access things like the transaction inquiry. So I can just view the account transactions here in a web-based format. So you can see the current account balance, what the credit limit is, value of current orders on the system. I can then see a transaction listing, and I can sort of cycle through those pages. And for those users in the office who may be CRM-only users but would like a bit more access to accounts, financials data, we can screen pop Sage 200 forms, and we can add, there's a number of screens out of the box, but you can add extra functions in as well. So if I do a transaction inquiry, it will pull up the Sage Ledger transaction inquiry screen, which will hopefully be fairly familiar. So it's in the background. So there we see, as a CRM-only user, so I don't have a license for Sage 200, but as a CRM-only user, I'm now able to access the transaction inquiry and do all the functionality you can do before against that. So I can go in here, do the drill down, add memos against individual transactions, reprint invoices and so on. So again, it's really empowering your sales staff and the customer-facing staff via CRM, and not requiring them to actually have a license of Sage 200, because we can expose lots of Sage 200 functionality to a CRM user. This is purely an out-of-the-box format of that integration. So that's some of the financials. If I then go to the commercial area, you have to give my little computer, it's whirring and clunking. It's normally it's been running on a proper server with all the power behind it, and this is just a small little laptop, so it's having a bit of a think. But it's come through here, so we can now view information again and also raise documents, quotes, orders, and so on. So if I go to view my sales orders, I'm getting my order history coming through. Click on the order line, and it's showing me the order details coming through here and the associated invoices and so on. I can print the order, you may notice up there, or continue back through, raise a new order from there as well. So it's giving you a lot of access to accounting data and accounting functionality as a CRM. And as I say, you can add extra functions to this. You might want your CRM users to be able to dispatch sales order lines. They might want to print invoices. They might want to raise purchase orders. All that functionality can be exposed via the new integration. So whereas before, for those users who have used the old CRM, the old integration is a little bit limited and quite slow in the way it operates. This brand new integration is very quick. It only synchronizes data on a record level as opposed to synchronizing all data, which the old integration did. And it allows us to actually add extra functionality into the system very quickly and easily. So we're seeing now their purchase history, for example, so we can see all the products they've bought in the past. What we can also do with this data is then use it for reporting, for groups and so on. So if I want to create a group of everybody who's bought a specific product from me last year, you can use that financial data to create groups for marketing purposes, or for email shots, or for callback lists, or so on. So it's just giving a lot of functionality and a lot of access to those CRM users.